Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's podcast. Welcome to Visions in the Making. I am your host, Crystal Harkless, and I am just so grateful for the guest that I'm going to bring on today. I believe that you're going to be in for a treat. Rhonda Hicks has been such a blessing to so many, and it's a pleasure of mine to be able to interview her today. We were just praying before we came on, and I just shared that I do believe that she has a powerful testimony, and she's building a legacy, I believe, that is going to really help others that are trying to navigate whatever it is that they're dealing with. And so I think this is a good segue into the podcast, because last week we talked about mothers, and we talked about the cry for mothers to step into the position of just being that support system for not just young children, but also adult children or adults that don't have their mothers. And so we were saying that George Floyd had cried out for his mother, and it was a cry that summoned all mothers to take their place so that we can speak into others. And so this powerful woman of God, she's a servant leader, she's a wellness advocate, she's a speaker and accountability partner. And so I just want to read her bio so that you'll know a little bit about her, and then I'll bring her right on so that we can have our conversation. So Rhonda Hicks is an entrepreneur. She's a wife, a mom, a cancer survivor, and an IT professional for over 25 years. She is originally from New Jersey, however, has called North Carolina home for over 25 years. Rhonda holds a degree in business administration management from Meredith College and has continued her studies at UNC Chapel Hill and Yale University in positive psychology. In November 2009, Rhonda launched her first entrepreneurial venture, Amazing Grace Event Management, or AGEM, where she had the opportunity to plan and manage events on a local, national, and international scale. In November of 2019, the company expanded its vision to include consulting services, which is now AGEM and Consulting. It provides coaching support for businesses to thrive by concentrating on employee first through their accountability workshops to stimulate and create an environment of support and team synergy that will lead to the overall success of any organization. In 2016, Rhonda launched Project She, whose major initiative is the She Treat, a place and space where women can step away from the everyday grind to enjoy an uplifting, encouraging, and positive experience to reflect, refocus, renew herself towards becoming a better woman, first for herself and then her family and her community. Rhonda is a contributing columnist for New Focus Daily magazines, a woman lifestyle magazine which provides go-to guides for strategies about health and wellness, cancer survivorship, money, career, relationships, inspiration, and more. She is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, whose main thrusts are sisterhood, scholarship, and service. Rhonda is also a Sunday school teacher and member of youth ministry leadership team at her church. When Rhonda is not busy taking her daughter to Girl Scouts or cheering on her son at his sporting events, she loves to travel and enjoys hosting gatherings at her home to bring family and friends together for food, fun, and fellowship. Wow. Okay, so I hope you know that you are in for a treat. So we're just going to have her come on now. I am so excited about this conversation. Welcome, 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 Rhonda.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Oh, I am good. I'm just glad I made it through your bio. I am telling you, you are a busy, busy woman.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Lots to do, lots to do. I like to stay busy, and I like to be out in the community. So I'm so very excited to have that for you having me on your podcast. Thank you so much. It's definitely a privilege.
Yeah. Well, let me also say happy Juneteenth Day.
Yes, Juneteenth, June 19th. Happy Juneteenth to you as well. It's definitely a day to reflect, commemorate, and celebrate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, I do believe that today was ordained that we would have this conversation, especially with everything that's going on today. And I think you're the perfect person for us to highlight today, because on Juneteenth, it really is about celebrating African Americans, and just, to commemorate our freedom
Yes.
and the accomplishments that we've been able to have because of that freedom. And so, I do want to talk about that, because the significance of, what we're going on or dealing with today, I think is sort of tragic that we're even having to deal with what we're dealing with,
Yes.
especially with African Americans today and all the changes that's going on. So if you could speak to that.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to do so on a day like today. It's interesting because every Friday at 12:30 on both Facebook and Instagram Live, I just take 15 minutes to connect with my audience. It's called the Midday Moment, and I literally go live to talk about things of relevance that are top of mind for me and that are relatable to those who are able to join me. And today, I too led with the fact that today was Juneteenth, and its significance in the fact that although we were emancipated in 1863, January 1st, when Abraham Lincoln delivered the Emancipation Proclamation, it still was not fully realized, and I say that in quotes because one could argue that we're still just free-ish, right? But it still wasn't acknowledged, at least until 2.5 years later, on June 19th of 1865, when Texas was actually the first state to be able to acknowledge the fact that, oh, yes, this did happen in 1863, and we're finally acknowledging the fact that slaves are free. And so I think that that's so significant, especially in this day and time where we have the Ahmaud Arbery's, the Breonna Taylors, the George Floyds, who have still been subject to a level of oppression that should not be present in today's society. And so me as a mother who has a teenage daughter of 13 and an 11-year-old son, I've had to have very deep conversations with them as it pertains to this subject. And we chose as a family, along with my husband, to watch the videos together and to have active conversations. And we still do have active conversations because this is not something that is a one and done. This is going to be, it is a movement. It is something that will not happen overnight. And it's something that, we have to continue to remain connected with our family and with one another in order to ensure that we understand what's going on. And so, to have a conversation with my son and tell him, when you go outside to walk the dog, you may not want to wear a hoodie.
Right.
Because there are unfortunately implications that can be made just upon the fact that you may wear a hoodie, whether it's raining or not. It shouldn't matter, right? But I've had to have that conversation with him. He's 11. What does he want to do every day? He wants to go play with the dog, and he wants to play soccer or basketball. He shouldn't have to worry about that. And so that is how it's applicable for me as a mom, that I have to have these conversations. I have to bring these realities to my children, but I'm trying to do everything that I can to have the conversation, to educate and empower them, and also strengthen them as young Black children.
And I also know that your son and your daughter had an opportunity to sort of share some feedback on how they're dealing with it and just how it's affecting them. And so if you could share that, as a mom, how did that, sit with you, hearing their feedback on that?
Yes, so we had the opportunity to speak to Terry Spicer, who is has an organization entitled the Sisters Inspiring Sisters Incorporated, and my daughter Clark is a member of her Small Pearls, and Pearl stands for Preparing Elegant and Ready Leaders for Success.
Love it.
And so what Terry has done, yes, I love it. So what Terry has done is she has established a forum for that youth age group who also need to be heard. She's established a forum that will actually take place this Monday evening, and it's called Their Voices Matter. And she's going to have a conversation with young people because they see things from a different perspective. And they have, they're going through things as it pertains to COVID and having to remote learn. And then, everything as it pertains to George Floyd and otherwise. And so I was able to, in that moment when we did the interview, to see things through their perspective. And Crystal, I will tell you, I was emotional. When I heard my son and my daughter speak, after the interview was over, I immediately went over there and embraced them because, my son expressed that, as a Black boy, he shouldn't have to feel scared to have to do certain things. My daughter talking about, also to the transition of not being able to, go to school and interact with her friends. We're social creatures. It's natural for us to be able to, to see and to interact and do those kinds of things. And so, it was emotional for me to hear some of those things and how they've been impacted, but also too, I was also too very proud of them for having the courage to be able to voice their opinions and how they were feeling, and because I hope that it will, be of impact to others, and that's why I appreciate the platform that you provided today, so that we can continue to share and hopefully provide some sort of relatability to those out there to let them know that they're not the only ones, and that we're experiencing similar things, and so yes, I was overwhelmed emotionally as a mom, but at the same time very proud of them too.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I've had a chance to see your son and daughter in action. And,
Yes.
The last event that I think I went to of yours, where you had a premiere of a great movie,
Yes.
it was She Did That.
She did that. That's
Yeah,
right. That's
and
right.
your children, you had them there, even though it was your event, you had them there helping you. And I'm telling you, the way they carried themselves, the way they were
Mm,
able to articulate and to help others, I was proud. And I I
good.
didn't even know
Oh,
them like that. And so,
yeah.
I salute you as a mom that
Oh,
you
goodness.
are getting them involved and you're building a legacy. You're building
That
a
is,
legacy for them,
yes. And I'm so glad that you said that because when I initially established my first business, we call it AGEM for short, I I started the business and I named the business um, for something that I wanted to resonate for me and my family as a legacy, and passing that on to my children. And then I also wanted it to be something that was relatable to the public. And therein came the amazing Grace event management part. And there was another meaning, if I may share as well, behind that, and that grace actually is my most favorite word ever for so many reasons, but it also encompasses the name of my first and middle name, my husband's first and middle name, and my children's first and middle names. And so that to me, and those all spelling the word grace, what else has happened amazing? And then that's how the name kind of came about. But I told my children that this was their legacy and that they needed to be a part of it. And so yes, Crystal, thank you for, acknowledging that, because I do try to involve them in every aspect of the business, and expose them to that, because I want them to be able to, further that business in generations to come. I want them to know the hard work of what it means to work hard. Entrepreneurship is also important to me. So yes, they were standing at that front door. They were welcoming in those guests. I wanted to make sure that they were on point because they represent the organization, they represent our company, and that is important. And so thank you for acknowledging that. I'm glad that they were on their P's and Q's that day.
Yes, they were. And I definitely think we need to see more of that. We need
Yes,
to see
thank
more
you.
of that, because I think, as kids, and I'm just going to think about when I was younger, my parents, made it seem like, okay, well, you go to college and you get a job. But we weren't really, looking at entrepreneurship. And I think that's the way to go. Even
Yeah,
as you were talking, I think about Black Wall Street
yes.
and how, we had a lot of African Americans that were trying to build businesses for themselves. And then it just all got taken away.
Mm,
It got all taken away. And so it was always a desire of us, or of ours, to have something of our own and to be able to build. And we didn't have
yeah.
that opportunity like
No, you're
other
absolutely
people.
right. And that's why, I was so glad to see you at the event that we had for the film. She did that. It was a documentary about Black women entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
And, that's why I'm so proud of you in taking the next step and moving forward and doing your podcasts and the other businesses that you have, because I think that, we have to build that legacy for ourselves. And we need to be able to support one another. And it's through that platform that we're able to do that. So, I'm sorry, this is real life, Crystal, and I've got my dog barking in the background. I got folks at the door and everything else, but we're going to continue moving the life of
Yes,
a busy, a busy mom and
yes.
all this stuff. So thank you for working with me on that.
No worries, no worries. But you know what? Let's talk about that,
Yes.
because you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a visionary.
Mm.
I mean, like, how do you deal with juggling all of that and
Oh
still
my
keep
God.
yourself sane?
Listen, it is a daily challenge and a daily pleasure to be able to dib and dab in so many things. And I think that that's kind of what keeps me going. It's what keeps me motivated.
Yeah.
Um, I just enjoy, everything that I do really. But here's the thing, I am no more busy than the next person. We all have those commas, and that's what I talk about in some of the events that I do for Project She, is that we have a mom, comma, wife, comma, social studies or Sunday school teacher, comma, all these different things, but we all can make that list. We're all so busy multitasking and doing so many things, and clearly there are some things that I have taken the initiative to try to bring forth from an entrepreneurial perspective. But it's because those things I feel passionate about. I do see that there's purpose there. And, that's why I was talking about that word servant leadership, is that I am really just the conduit in bringing some of these resources to my audience. But I am here to be of service. I think that is one of the most important things that God has ordained us to be on this planet, is to be servants. And so I try to, to bring that forth through Project She, in speaking with women and speaking with various audiences. Actually, I've had the opportunity to speak with men as well, because these topics are very relevant, to be honest, some of the things that we do discuss. And so yeah, me being busy, I am no more busy than anyone else. And so, although things get crazy from day to day, that it happens like that for everybody. And so I'm just blessed to be able to have the opportunity to do what I do. I love what I do. I hope that shows. And I think that everybody has the same ability to do the same. So I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful. And one day at a time, Crystal, one day at a time.
I hear you. I hear you. So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Project She.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit how that came about. Like, what inspired you to start that?
Okay, so I'm going to take you back. Let's go back a few years. Let's go back several years, actually. So when you had mentioned that it started in 2016 when I officially kind of launched things, but the idea for Project She actually began a few years before then, around 2014. And, you know, I found myself at that time, I had 2 young children. I was working, had gone back to work. I had taken off 4 years and was at home with I was a work at home mom. And yes, I call it work at home because, you know, I'm not just staying at home when I'm at home. Okay? That is a work at home job. And so to all my moms who are at home working, taking care of children and family and all of those other things, yes, that's how I categorize it, as working at home. Then I went back to corporate America and I embarked upon that. And so that was another layer on top of everything else. And so I found myself, you know, doing all these things, as you had mentioned, Crystal, earlier, for everybody else. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, who am I? Yeah. What's my purpose? What am I all about? And so, being the inquisitive person that I am, I put together a survey and I sent it out. And there were over 100 people that had responded to the survey, women specifically. And I was just asking them, are you experiencing some of the same things? Like, are you stressed? Is this going on in your life? What's happening for you here? And so I got all of this feedback from everyone. And I was like, there's something here. There's something that we need, that we don't have the voice for, that we don't have the resources for back in 2014, in my opinion. I saw that there was a void there. And so I came across, I started thinking about ideas, and that's where the idea of Project She, the ideation behind Project She, came about. So it was birthed through my personal experience as a mom, all of those other things, right? And so, you know, as I was, you know, putting together, you know, the ideation behind what I thought it should look like, and, you know, doing some introspection and praying about what this vision should be and how it should be birthed to everyone else, I came across a situation from a personal perspective that kind of put a halt on that. And that is that on June 27th, I'll never forget the date, it's coming up very soon for this year as well, but on June 27th of 2014, I was told that I had cancer. And so that, for me, put a halt on everything else around me. And so although I believe that purpose is interpreted, or I interpret it it could be interpreted in 3 different ways. Purpose is, you know, what is my purpose for today? Purpose is, what is my purpose for this season in my life? And then purpose is, what is my God-ordained purpose? So for me, on that day, June 27, 2014, my purpose shifted to a season of becoming well. Yeah. And so I had to put, like I said, everything else on hold to focus on getting well. And I will tell you that initially, when I was given the diagnosis, I thought I was going to die. And the reason why is because my father had passed away of the same exact cancer that I had acquired. And so that was my first thought. But I will tell you definitively and without question that my next thought had to be and was, but what am I going to do to beat it? Because I will say this, I had, like I said, 2 young children, I had a husband, I had a family, and I also had an event that happened the next day that I worked 17 hours for that event. And so what I learned in that moment, Crystal, is that life stopped for me. It didn't stop for everybody else in that moment. I still had to move on. And just because something happened to me, I didn't have the time, nor did I allow myself to sit in a place where I was going to say, woe is me. Now, listen, I'm not going to tell you that it was easy. I'm not going to tell you that I did not have my moments, but I had to mentally lock in on the fact that, yes, this has happened, but what are we going to do to beat it? And, you know, how am I going to move forward? All right. So segue to that, I went through 2015 is when I started my treatments, and I went through 2.5 years of treatments for my cancer. So now that brings it to what, 2016, 2017, actually. When I didn't finish my treatments until I think April of 2017. But as I was getting better and as I was going through that journey, and I was self-reflecting and, you know, doing all those things during that period of becoming well for myself, I realized that there was still something that needed to be shared with women who were like me. And so Project She was birthed in 2016. And I didn't tell many people. I didn't tell a lot of people at my job that I had cancer. I didn't tell a lot of people, you know, outside of that until I was declared cancer free. And so people were, you know, even shocked when I'd shared. They were like, oh, you're still going through treatment and all this other kind of stuff. So yes, I was still going through, but there was still something else that needed to be said. So 2016, we launched it. I had my first event in July of 2016, I believe it was, somewhere around there. Had a keynote speaker and Dr. Shirley Davis. We talked about, you know, so many things in that event, and it's all built around this cornerstone of three fundamentals. And those cornerstones are to reflect, to refocus, and to renew. We're reflecting on our past experiences, on all those things that have made us who we are today, those things that we have compartmentalized, and those things that we may not necessarily want to fully embrace, but they're still part of our experience. So the reflection is that part, right? And then refocusing on on what we need to get done in that moment. And I talked about, you know, that purpose, right? So it's refocusing on what is important for us in our lives, and then renewing ourselves towards that purpose. And so the She Treats are designed to walk us through that process: reflection, refocusing, renewing ourselves. And, you know, that's how it kind of came to be. And so I have modeled the events that I have had over the years under the construct of making sure that we do incorporate some of those things, all of those elements actually, in our events. And so Project She was born.
Well, I had the honor of being able to attend that first event, and I can just tell that there were a lot of women that were, they needed that. They needed that. And I just, you know, people were sharing, and it was an opportunity for, like you said, women in general just to be together, support each other, encourage each other, receive empowerment. And I think as moms, I'm not a mom yet, but let me say it this way. I think, look, I'm speaking that into existence.
All right. That's right.
But I think mothers, sometimes you're pulled in so many different directions. And especially when life happens like it did for you, you don't have the opportunity to stop. You have to keep going for everyone else. And like you said, the demands of work and children and husband and business and whatever else comes in there.
Yes, because there are others, you know, there's the stuff.
Yes.
The stuff happens, yeah.
But I don't think that you really get an opportunity to step back and just take care of you.
And that is exactly why, to your point, why it was created, because I wanted to create a safe place and space where we would be able to gather to reflect, refocus, and renew, but also celebrate ourselves, celebrate our beauty, celebrate our tenacity, celebrate our feistiness, celebrate, you know, all of the magnificent things that make us who we are, because we don't do enough of that either. You know, we don't do enough of patting ourselves on the back. And that's not to say that we're being boastful or we're bragging, but I think that everybody has a right to do that. And so, yes, it is. I'm so glad that you said that. And I'm so glad that you were part of the first one, because they're intimate settings. They're not, you know, super large. I like for there to be intimacy, because I am a person that likes to connect. I like to reach out and touch. I like to be able to have conversation. I want to be able to, you know, to have meaningful conversations, and that's really what it's all about. So yes, creating that safe space where we're able to step away. I say we step away from the crazy of everyday life, and really just it's all about us. And I think that a lot of us have a hard time of doing that because we don't give ourselves permission. I don't think that we oftentimes think that we deserve that. And you know, I challenge you know, women often when I say, you know what, we do a great job of getting our hair done, getting our nails done. My nails are not done right now because I have not gone out to anybody's. I have not gotten a mani or pedi. I have not gotten my hair done. So yes, this is totally just me in all natural form. But I'm saying that, we do such a great job of putting on the mask. We can look beautiful, but inside we are a broke down mess.
Yeah.
And so, what are we doing to build ourselves up from the inside out? Because it's from the inside out. You could look beautiful, but what's going on inside of you, because that's going to eventually come out. And so that's why we talk about topics of relevance. And there's a theme every year that we talk about. So the first year was the 3 cornerstones: to reflect, refocus, and renew. But then we had other themes like reclaim, restore. Because we want to be able to concentrate on a certain process, because this is not something that you're going to check the box on. When you go and get your nails done, you're able to say, oh, my nails look good. Or you go get your hair done. You see an immediate result. Right. And we're so like people that want to be like, I want to check that box. I want to get it done. And unfortunately, that's not what Project She is all about. The tagline is because we are all a work in progress. That progress does not end. You're never able to check the box on that, because hopefully you are continuing to evolve, you are continuing to change, you are continuing to learn and to grow. It's so funny, again, I was talking about that on my midday moment earlier today about comfort zones, stepping out of our comfort zones, right? And there are stages of that. So you have your comfort zone, you're in your little bubble, and then there's this next stage of fear, the fear zone. And then the next 2 stages after that are learning and growth. So you got comfort, fear, learning, and growth. And I want to try to stay in this learning and growth area. I want to constantly be learning. I want to constantly grow. I want to constantly better myself and offer myself up to others to hopefully be able to have a positive exchange that they will too be able to benefit from that. And that is what Project She is all about. I was talking about some of the topics as of late. Last year, we concentrated on mental health. And self-care. I know that's a big term and it may be overused now, but oh, how important is it for us to be able, especially in this day and age of COVID and, coronavirus and, everything else that's going on around us. We've got to be creative in finding ways that we're able to maintain our peace and take care of ourselves, because it is real. The struggle is real for a lot of people. Just because I may be doing okay does not mean that you're doing okay. It doesn't mean that this other person is not experiencing these things differently. We have to acknowledge these kinds of things, and we have to help one another. And so relevant topics, again, things that we need to be talking about, that we may not necessarily feel comfortable talking about in other areas. We don't want to talk about the fact that stress, anxiety, depression, these are real things that millions of people are not only diagnosed with, but there are millions others that are undiagnosed that are experiencing these things. Totally normal. Happens to all of us. And so we want to be able to talk about and break the stigma on some of these other topics and really talk about it. We talked about spring cleaning, getting your life in order. Getting things, cleaned up in your life, clearing out that clutter. We've talked about letting go, letting go of things from the past and how we need to move forward. So, oh my gosh, I know I'm talking a lot. Crystal, I do. So, but I'm just so passionate about it, because I think that these are things that we have to be discussing. And, as women, because it's not to exclude men, but I only know my experience. And I think that we as women, we hold a unique experience. And what I do believe is that, I'm bold enough, as we've talked about, when you were praying, I am bold enough to believe that this vision of Project She is bigger than me. And it is a global thing. I think that women that are in Indonesia are experiencing the same thing that women are experiencing in Los Angeles, that people are experiencing in London, that people are experiencing in Kenya. I don't think that these are things that are just specific to me because I'm in this corner of the United States. And so, I hope to be able to bring, these kinds of messages to women around the world, because I think it's relevant and necessary.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be international. I'm going to go ahead and
I receive it. Yes.
Because I
Absolutely.
think, what you're addressing is, like you said, it's very relevant and it's needed.
Yeah.
And I think as women, we can get lost in everything else and
Mm,
neglect ourselves. And I think Project She forces you to take a look at what you have been trying to ignore, what you've been
mm,
trying to avoid. It's time to do some self care, and it is necessary because if you're continuing to pour out into others and you're so empty, and I love the fact that you said it's more about the inside than it's the outside.
oh yeah.
But if you are continually pouring out, then you really don't have much to give after a while. And
Mm,
then that's when the mental health issues come in. That's
mhm.
when, the sickness comes in, because we're not taking care of ourselves. And as women, we do have a tendency to
Yep.
neglect taking care of ourselves, and that should not be. We'll take care
Yes.
of everybody else.
Everybody else. Everybody else. And feel the obligation to do so,
Yeah.
right? So I think that a lot of these things, and this is again something that I talk about in some of the workshops that I do as well, is that we are nurturers,
Yeah.
we are pleasers, and so we don't know how to say no a
Yeah.
lot of times because we want to make sure that everybody's happy and everything, but then we forget about ourselves. So we've got to create boundaries for ourselves, and we have to say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to do that this time.
Mhm.
I will try to support in other areas or maybe in other ways, but I can't commit to that right now, and that has to be okay too.
Yeah.
Because if we don't create these boundaries for ourselves, just like you said, we'll end up on empty.
Yeah.
We won't have anything more to give. And then, like I said, that's when some of these other things kind of set in where we find that we are just stressed out. We can't think. And I don't know, about you, but, sometimes for me as a mom, wife, comma, for me in my household, if I am off, everybody's off.
Yeah.
The kids are off, husband is off, and it's just like, oh my goodness. So I can't afford to like fall off the bandwagon. And that doesn't say that doesn't happen from time to time, because again, it is a daily challenge to be able to maintain all of these things at all the times. But I'm grateful to have a partner that I can, rely upon, who also recognizes those things. And if I say I need a moment, then I need a moment, because if mama's not happy, then family not happy. But that's another part of it too, right? But we have to recognize that for ourselves, and we have to give ourselves permission to be able to step away and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I need 15 minutes. I need some silent private time. I need to decompress. I need to go to my private space, wherever that is, and I need to bring it back to center.
Yeah.
And that should be a part of our daily practice, to be honest. And it's something that we should do regularly to recalibrate, because life is just, even in this time, for me, life is just going right on by. It is June 19th
Yeah.
of 2020.
It is flying.
This half of this year is gone.
It is flying.
And the majority of us, it's been about just, coping and getting through all things that 2020 has been.
Mhm.
But you know what? I know of also too, a lot of people who are thriving in 2020.
Yeah.
You launched your podcast in 2020. You are accomplishing things. And so we can still do that. But you have to make a commitment to do it and to step away and say, no, I'm a priority and I need to do this for myself.
There were two key things that you pointed out. You said boundaries and you are a priority.
Mm-hmm.
And when you said that, it made me think about Oprah, when Oprah was saying, just say no.
Just
I'm learning to say no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good for you. And let me tell you what, I didn't probably become comfortable with just saying no until I was in my 40s, and I'm well into my 40s.
Yeah.
And I think that it comes with age, it comes with maturity. I think it comes with that self-recognition that, I have to, and self-preservation, that I have to take care of myself. And it's not being selfish.
No.
It's just that you don't have to be selfless all the time. You should have that attitude of being selfless and wanting to give and wanting to serve, but you have to be selfish sometimes in order to be selfless.
Oh,
They
goodness.
kind of go hand in hand, right? Let me write that down. Wait a minute, wait a minute. Comment. I see a t-shirt coming though, I'm just saying. But you know, isn't that true,
It
right?
is. It is.
It's so true.
That's a gem right there.
That's a gem. That's a gem. I'm writing it down. I'm writing it down. You gotta be selfish in order to be selfless. So I'm just saying that's gonna come out in another way, shape, or form from this conversation. But so thank you for being the inspiration. But it's so true. It really is. That's the bottom line.
Amen. Well, you know what? If you could just take a moment to encourage the other visionaries out there, because you are a visionary, and if you could just take a moment to encourage them to take that step, because I love what you said about um, getting out of your comfort zone and then getting past the fear
Hmm.
and then going to that growth and learning. So if you could just, I'm just going to let you go for it and let you encourage them, because I do believe there are people out there that need that.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. So here's what I will say as I pause for a moment to take it all in, because I think that there's so much that we can incorporate into helping people to realize that I am you and you are me. What I mean by that is that I am no more special. I am, no more talented. I am no more gifted than you are. Because God has given each and every one of us our unique talents and gifts. And so I sit before you again, just as being an example of someone who has taken just a little bit of what I have been given to give to others. And the beauty of it is that we can all do the same thing because we have all been given a unique gift. And it's just a matter in us finding out what that is. And that's the journey, right? That's the journey. So many of us feel like we haven't been able to identify what that gift may be. But I will say this. You mentioned Oprah earlier. Oprah is one of those persons who has she's clearly walking in her purpose. She was clearly, and she will tell you, has said it many times, that she knew from a very, very early age what she was put on this planet to do. What I will say is that sometimes that doesn't come as easy for all of us. But the thing is that it doesn't have to be Oprah-esque. And what I mean by that is that we don't have to feel like we've got to change the world. Whatever your gift may be, whatever you're talented at, it could be, I don't know, knitting, or there are all these people that are sewers that are making masks, and they're making an impact on serving the community because there is a need for that. There are so many things out here that listen, don't worry about me impeding upon your gift, because what is here for me is for me, and what is for you is for you. You have to find that little thing, whatever it may be, that you will be able to offer to others. And again, it could be the littlest thing, and you may only touch 1, 2 people here and there, but guess what? You're making a difference. And that is what it's all about. It's just all about, what can I do to offer myself up to others and to be impactful on my community. Anybody can do it. Everybody should do it. And just realize that, again, there's room enough for everybody here. There is nothing that God has given to you that you shouldn't put to use. And this was one thing that was said to me not too long ago, and I was like, ooh, this is serious. It was like, if God gives you something and you don't use it, then oh my goodness, He'll give it to somebody else, because it's got to get out there somehow, right? So if you don't use what you've been given, and if you're too scared to take the next step, to move forward, you've got to get past that. Like we were talking about these comfort zones. It's so easy to stay right over here. And I had to do that too, Crystal. I'm not telling y'all anything that I have not had to do myself. Because for as much as I may look like I'm a ham in front of everybody else, I used to be in the first business that I was telling you that you were talking about, my event management business, I was behind the scenes. I was the young lady who was dressed in black to make sure that the bride got down the aisle, or to make sure that this particular function went off flawlessly. I was the person. But now I'm having to step out in the forefront and talk to people about my journey. And so it was initially uncomfortable for me to do that, because I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm used to being behind the scenes. But no, God said, and others confirmed for me, okay, so what are you going to do to tell your story? So what's next for you in getting this message out to others? Because that's where it needs to be. So you got to push back that fear, and you got to say, I'm going to do it anyway. When I first jumped into the industry of event management, I didn't know anybody. And I just randomly picked an organization that I felt was going to make a difference for me. I aligned myself with that organization. And I'll never forget, I went to an event downtown Raleigh at one of the museums, and I knew nobody in the room did I know. But I made myself known. I handed out my business cards. And I still have some of those allies to this day that I'm able to interact with. You just got to take the step. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know everything about anything, because you know what? It's just, it has to happen naturally. That's not to say that you shouldn't prepare and that you can't prepare, because you should become educated about, whatever it is that you may be doing. But don't feel like you have to have all of your I's dotted, all of your T's crossed to be able to move forward in your journey. Little steps at a time. And I am still growing. I am still learning. And again, I want to stay in that growth and learning area. I want to continuously be there, right? I want to continuously be there and push back that fear and move out of my comfort zone and, move through what God has for me and what God has for everyone else. And whether that be through Project She, whether that be through, AGEM and consulting, whether that be through my testimony and sharing about my cancer survivorship or some of the other things that I may have been through, however God wishes to use me. I just want to be used, and I just want to be encouraging. So please, be encouraged. Know that you have something that somebody else needs. And just go for it. Just go for it. We are here to support you, and you need to be heard. So I hope that helps somebody.
Yes, Lord. It helped. If nobody else, it helped me.
Oh, good, Crystal. I'm so glad. Yes.
Oh man, I just hope that you guys really had an opportunity to hear her heart, and that you have gleaned something from this. I know I have. And at the end of the day, it really is about taking that step and telling your story and being willing to get past the fear, because someone needs what you have. Someone needs what you have. And you know what? I do believe that God has placed gifts within us. And He is really at this place now where He's saying it's time to build. It's time to do what I've called you to do. And I just love that I have the opportunity to interview these kingdom entrepreneurs. Because I don't know if you notice, every last person that I have interviewed has been in the kingdom. God has been their support. And they have taken the tools and the gifts that God has given them and used that to build something that is so great and affecting so many lives. And I pray that their story, their testimony, will help you to do what you need to do, to step out there, step outside the boat.
That's it.
Step outside the boat.
That's right.
Walk on water, because this is the season for us to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And if you can just get out there, get past, this need to be perfect, get past this need for others to support you or rah-rah. No, you do it, and everything else will just come as God brings it. And so I am just so grateful for this platform. I pray that lives will be changed by the stories that you get an opportunity to hear. And we're going to keep on doing this. We're going to
Yes.
keep on moving forward. We're going to keep on sharing our stories and building the kingdom. And I hope that there will be many more entrepreneurs to come
Yeah.
as we build upon this legacy that I believe that God will have us to build upon.
Amen. Amen. That is wonderful. Wonderful.
So I just appreciate you for being here, Rhonda.
Oh,
I know that we'll be doing some things together down the road. I just feel it.
yes.
And
I love it.
yeah, so blessings to you and blessings to all of the listeners. I hope that
Yes.
you will tune in to the next podcast. And this has been Visions in the Making, where we reveal the story behind the glory. Have a great night. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Crystal.